Gabino, welcome back to This is Horror.
Thank you for having me again. It's been way too long.
It has been over 6 years, so in a way, it feels almost disingenuous to say welcome back as if, I was talking to you a few minutes ago or
Yeah, I
even
don't know.
last year, but yeah,
We're
six.
we're not the same people, so it's it's good to be back and to see both of you again. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, normally I would ask, what have been the biggest changes for you personally and professionally since we last spoke? But where do we even begin with that?
Um, I stuck with the writing thing, and it sort of started working out, which is that's good. So oh wow, 6 years. That's half a dozen. I want a Stoker. Like in the process of this whole thing working out, I want a Stoker, and was nominated to other things that sell your rights almost immediately in other countries. So you take that amazing foreign money, and that helps the whole thing work out because you get paid for things, and getting paid is absolutely fantastic. Um, and yeah, nothing else has changed because I still haven't figured out exactly what I'm doing. So all the other parts are still the same. I'm just not 6 years. High school teacher, probably at the time we last spoke. Yeah. So I'm not doing that
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And I know now that you're working with Mulholland Books, so let's talk about how did that come about?
I was had a Zero Saints and Coyote songs were out, and I was constantly trying to get those everywhere. Both of you are very well acquainted with indie publishing. There's a lot of limitations in terms of like what you can do with marketing and who will carry your books and who won't. That I'm not going to say 6 years, but in the last 8 to 10, that has changed a lot. Um, so I started when that wasn't part of the indie scene. So I was trying to, what's the next step? And then yeah, I wrote The Devil Takes You Home probably a year before the pandemic. Then I got fired, so I pretended that I was a full time writer, um, and finished Devil Takes You Home, and that landed me an agent. And that is, I know it sounds like a cliche, but if you do the exact same thing for a very long time and it works out, if you can add the right agent, you don't have to. It wasn't you. All those years that you were struggling, it wasn't you. You just needed this one person that can work some kind of literary miracle, and that's what happened. So she got me a two-book deal, and off to the races. And now I'm lighting candles so that she likes the next one, and then that she can also sell it so that we both get paid. So that's, yeah, that about sums it up.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of people who are listening who are looking to get an agent and are seeing that as the next step on their journey. So then I wonder with you specifically what that process looked like and then how you decided to go with the agent that you ultimately went with.
So I should start that story. 2008 to about 2010, I spent those 2 years just trying to get an agent, and maybe got 300, 400 rejections, or ignored emails, or sometimes you would get like a partial request or a full request, and that went nowhere, even though those things get you very excited. um, Hindsight is 2020. Obviously the writing, it was not the strongest. It wasn't a wonderful, amazing novel that truly deserved to see the light of day. It was me trying to write my first novel in English, and trying to switch languages while merging horror and crime, and it was 120,000 words, and it was a mess. So I didn't get an agent, and I did start a career without an agent. Um, if you're struggling and you feel like the indie scene is for you now, um, I don't recommend trying to see it as a platform. I'm just saying that for a lot of us, that's just the way that things panned out. So you can spend a bunch of years as an indie, and then you get the break that you were waiting for, or whatever you want to call it. In my case, it was relatively easy the second time around because I already had a career. I had 3, 4 books out. Coyote Songs had like a Stoker nomination, so it was on a couple of radars. He won the Wonderland Book Award, so that was like, oh, you get free publicity. Like you don't get paid for winning awards, but people talk about the book. So yeah, this agent reached out, and I said, I have a thing if you're willing to wait. So the first time was 2 years of rejection, and the second time was basically fate knocking at the door and asking to see what I was working on. And she told me to change absolutely nothing, and that was like I didn't need to see anything else. It was like you see what I'm trying to do, and you don't have a problem with it, with the violence or the politics or the Spanglish or the gay characters, and like, none of that. You're on board. Yes, okay, fantastic. That's all I need. Let's work together. So just stick with it. You know.
Yeah, I recall in a previous interview, I mean, when you talk about all of the elements such as the Spanglish and the gay characters, that you said, you kind of have embraced in a way some of the Lovecraft references, but then what you're doing is making it uniquely your own by throwing in all the things that Lovecraft would have absolutely hated. So you're kind of taking it back, as it were.
It's if you're American, you can be the most amazing liberal loving person who works with children, and feeds the poor. There might be a lot of dark stuff in your DNA, so if you start going back, don't go back 1 or 2 generations, go back 3, 4, 5, 6 generations. You might find some dark stuff in there. Um, it's exactly the same when you're writing. It's this weird process where the stuff that you've read is part of you. So when I was 12, I didn't know Lovecraft was like a horrible racist. I didn't know the name of his cat. I didn't know anything about anti-Semitism. I didn't know any of that. I just knew monsters and the way that it made me feel, and learning all this pronunciations of words that I'd never read before. So it's part of my DNA. But then you grow up and you learn, what that means. So you either try to hide it and don't talk about it, or oh, he's problematic, or you accept it. He's part of horror's DNA, the same way that Clive Barker is, whether you like his work or not, or Stephen King, whether you like his work or not. They're part of our DNA. So it was like, if I'm going to be using some of that stuff anyway, I might as well go hard on making him, do turns in his grave. So I'm going to fill it with all the people that he would have hated. And that's sort of you know, we'll celebrate your legacy while also pissing in your grave sort of combination that I think works.
Yeah, I think there's a number of people who kind of deserve that reaction,
Yeah.
as it were. And, I mean, sometimes we say people are complicated, but H.P. Lovecraft is another level that is beyond complication.
And I get all the excuses. It was a different time, and he didn't know any better. But there were other people who were alive at the same time who didn't have the same thoughts. So it's never an excuse. But he's dead and buried, so we can't slap him around now. So we insult him by using his work in the best way possible.
Yeah, and when people say it was a different time, I mean, historians have said yes, but H.P. Lovecraft was not good for his time. So it was a different time, but he took it, to the next level with his. I mean, who who decides to call their cat that? I mean,
A
an
very,
absolute
very
racist is
specific
probably
character.
the answer, but
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, a bad person.
yeah. But in terms of your journey with the agent, I mean, I think it's a very optimistic story. I think it's one that kind of goes to show that look, if you just keep working hard, if you keep putting in the hustle, if you keep
Yeah,
showing up at the keyboard, you get the words down. I mean that's what you have to do. There are no guarantees whether we will make it or not with writing, whatever that even means. But
yeah,
the nearest way to guarantee or to enhance your chances is to just keep putting the work in. So I mean I think there are a number of people who they're just writing and they're waiting for somebody to pick them, but we need to pick ourselves. So if you can't land the agent, you put your work out another
right.
way. And I mean, it's not just happened for you, but this seems to be the journey that a lot of people have taken. If I think of Eric LaRocca and Gemma Moore, they put their work out there in a more kind of independent mode.
Yeah,
And then the bigger publishers discovered them when they'd
yeah.
already been discovered, when they were already proven, as it were.
Yes, yeah. It's a conversation that I like to have because I think it gets very murky. Because I heard when I started, I heard a lot of the only thing that matters is the art. So you write the best that you can, and then you let the audience find you. And I was like, all right, that sounds awesome from an artistic viewpoint. You just focus on the art, and then you realize that if you're going to get involved in publishing, that's not art, that's a business. So there's marketing involved, and it's like, all right, I did the art part, but now I want to share it. How do I go about doing that? And people still tell you like, no, 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 keep focusing on the art, and then your audience will find you. No, do what Eric did. Just be as loud as possible and get those fantastic covers. If you go that route, just be as loud as possible. Everyone is screaming into the void. So how are you going to make that scream of yours special? So figure out what works for you. But yeah, it's don't be quiet. Don't wait for the audience to come to you, because you can live 10 lives as an author and not gain 10 readers if you don't talk about your work.
It's the same for any type of artist. Like prime example, everybody knows me as a writer. I can draw. I don't draw that much because drawing is painful for me. I have carpal tunnel, and so it's very it's hard to be able to try to finish a project because you get in, like in writing, you get in the zone and you get to the point to where you can't even physically hold the pen or pencil that you're working with to draw, and so it's very frustrating to have to put work aside. Those binders that I have with photo with with my drawings and everything that I have never finished or anything like that. Let's say they're finished. If I don't put them out there, no one fucking knows about them. So
They're in the
it's like
Bible.
the same thing. If I want to sell those drawings, I have to get loud about it. I have to put it out there. The art. If you do the art, they're not going to come to you. You have to business it. Sorry, it's just you have to.
Yeah,
Whatever
it's
level that works for you, you're going to have to figure it out. And for some people who, especially the more that you want, you need someone who knows the business better than you do.
yes,
But shoot, dude, get your stuff out there. Get it out there. It
as
ain't going
much as
nowhere in the closet. And it's just not going to sit. It's going to sit there.
preach.
Yeah, well, we've spoken to writers who kind of have all sorts of different breakups in terms of the, I suppose, percentage of writing versus
Yeah,
promoting. There are people like Jason Pargin who it's way on the promotion side in terms of how he divides his time. You've got others like the British author David Moody, where it's much more the writing. So I'm wondering, what does your balance look like in terms of marketing and writing? Is it even something you're conscious of? And it might be worth noting too that, the social media landscape has shifted dramatically since Elon Musk bought Twitter, or essentially messed it up. So how has that affected things for you?
It's when you said changing, yes. I've been there for the whole gauntlet. In some cases, it's getting a little better. I like blue sky a little bit. In other instances, it has just gotten worse and continues to get worse. And every time that I learn anything new about a new platform, it's usually Nazi related. Like they're allowed to, carry Nazi content, or so like I always feel like I'm running to catch up to know what's going on, and how is the world of social media horrible in a different way today. But many years ago, when I was, starting out, I decided I cannot look at this. You literally acquire a new job that you didn't apply for. You apply to the writer gig, and then they're like, oh, you're now a public speaker, you're now a person who, if more than 50 people read your book in a community, you're going to end up writing a blurb for someone, so you have to read the whole book, and you're going to have to do this other thing, and you're going to have to do interviews, and if it works out, you're going to do podcasts. So those 2 hours you were going to write or rest, you're not doing that, you're doing the writer thing. And you're like, but the writing thing was just me writing, that did not involve like traveling or not being able to write. So that was the mental thing. If you allow marketing to become so huge, it cuts into your writing time. So you change gigs without even knowing it. So I made it part of my life, just fun. Like we're gonna do Friday reads every Friday. That's a lot of fun. I find a lot of new books to me every single Friday, which is fantastic. I might speak about something that reminded me of a story from Serial Saints or Coyote Songs to sell those reissues. Um, but I'm not. I'm constantly thinking about how can I do more for the books, but I'm not constantly on social media talking about the books, because that's an easy way of just breaking connections with people, because you're not a person anymore. You're just here's the Amazon link, here's the Amazon link. I'm not going to reply to your questions, I'm not going to tell you a joke, I'm not going to comment on the news or politics, but guess what, here's an Amazon link to my book. And I don't want to do that. I think that's it's horrible when I see accounts that do that. It's just like it's not a human. I feel like it's another crypto bot slash book marketer on social media. Just here's the link again and again 4 times per day, and I don't want to do that ever if I can fight it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, even the last time we spoke with you, one of the things that you were doing that, of course, other people do, but perhaps not to the level, is just promoting other people's stuff,
Yeah,
relentlessly, and being like, what have you got? Let me signal boost it. I mean, that is kind of raising all ships, as it were. You've built up this pretty big audience, and then you're like, well, let me help you out. What have you got?
it's a any time as an author that you get invited to an event, getting that invitation is that's the goal. Someone contacted you because you wrote this thing or because they know your work. That's it. That was your job. Someone contacted you because of your writing. You're going to go to a place, um or you're going to do an interview, and you're going to mention your books, and the host or the person who brings you, or the university who brings you, or the bookshop who brings you are going to have your books out. Like that's it. That's the job. You're done. The rest of the time, sure, talk about your book, but maybe you write a book. In my case, it might take a year and a half, sometimes 2 years. How many other books am I enjoying in those 2 years? I'm not going to constantly talk about my crap. Let me tell you about the stuff that I'm loving right now. Let me tell you about the most amazing book that got me out of a writing slump. um it's not even just like remember to plug everybody else. It's just, I think it should be just a normal part of your conversation, like, hey, we're here to talk books, right? Check out this books, and then you start, like, we've already done like Eric LaRocca, Haley Piper, yada yada. So you keep adding names, and it's like, it's my community is what I love. Let me talk. Yeah, yeah, we'll mention my books later, but have you read about? And then you're like, oh man, the new double Stephen Graham Jones, and then you're like, of course. I mean, Stephen doesn't count as someone who might need our help. But you still talk about him, right? So it's all good. It's about talking the stuff that you love.
It's funny because every time I bring up, like, I'm telling friends and coworkers and stuff, they find out, that I write and I read and things like that. And then I find out they read horror, and I'll bring up somebody like Stephen Graham Jones. They go, yeah, yeah, that new guy. Yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no,
totally new.
no,
Yeah,
he's already written 2 books while you said that. He's pretty
yes,
prolific.
yes.
The publisher has slowed him down, but he still writes.
Oh yeah,
But the whole signal boost thing is that I tend to follow people on social media who do a lot of signal boosting. It's easy. That's an easy follow. It's like, I like what you're doing. You're not boosting yourself. You're boosting other people. You're boosting other people's art. You know, like, great examples, Trevor Henderson. If he likes it, if he thinks it's cool, fuck, he's all over it. He's gonna tell you, hey, this shit is fucking cool. You need to check it out. This is the new book I read. This is a new movie I saw. I do that, and I don't expect anything in return, because if I think it's cool, then I think other people too. And sometimes I get really, really excited. And
yeah,
sometimes I get not so excited, like Ice Cube doing a War of the Worlds movie, you know. But with, like, we really fucking need that. But it's like, so I'm like, I might complain about things, but it's
yeah,
that you've got to get other voices out there, and never don't. If you're listening to this and you're like, I'm going to do it so they'll quote me, and they'll post about me. No, it don't
yeah,
work that way, man. You cannot expect. You
yeah,
should only just do, and you should do it because you think their shit's cool. That's the only reason. It's just, I think this is
yeah.
fucking badass.
And I think there's I'm a music fan, and I think the horror community is like the music community, in the sense that it's like, oh, if you dig this, and then it's like it's constant. Like, oh, you read this author for the first time, you didn't know this kind of horror existed. Oh, you're getting into like liminal space stuff. Oh, come here. And then you're always, it's like you have a stash. No matter what people are getting into, you just want to share the goods, because then you're not forced to nerd out by yourself. Like, oh, did you read
Mm-hmm.
that part? So it's, yeah, it should be part of the ecosystem. You should constantly be talking about, the stuff that you're consuming, and the movies that you're watching, and the, whatever's keeping you alive that week, because God knows we all need it. So share all the good stuff constantly.
Yes, yes. I got into Charles Mingus because you posted about Charles
Yeah,
Mingus.
yeah.
And I was like, I go, who is that? I'm like, okay, jazz. I'm in. He plays bass. Oh, he's really, really good.
Oh,
And I'm like,
cool.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So I love that stuff, man.
Yeah.
Keep it
Is that
coming.
him yelling? Yes, I like that. Yeah.
But I mean, to go to your writing routine, what does that look like now? And I mean, you said that you don't have a day job at the moment. So, I mean, the writing, it has become the day job. So, how has that shifted since we last spoke?
So it's I still do teaching. I taught for a while at Southern Hampshire University's online MFA. And then for 2 years, I've been teaching with Todd Goldberg at UCR's Palm Desert Low Residency MFA. And the I think stuff that's low residency was just built for me. It doesn't even feel like work. I'm just at home, so I'll prioritize reading students, you know, writing. Once that's done, the main change now has been usually I can schedule my life so that between 10 or 11 a.m. and 2, 3 in the afternoon, it's just it's me and the dog. It's me and the dog and the music, and then that's it. I don't want to. I'm not gonna answer emails. I'm not gonna pick up my phone. I'm gonna ignore the news for a little bit. That allows me to have more time to write, which I thought was going to immediately translate into me writing more. um, it has so far translated into me struggling for longer to write probably the same amount of words that I was writing before, when I had to force myself to write at midnight or with one hand through, through my lunch. I do think the stuff is better now because I spend the same amount of work, same amount of time to produce at the same pace, but I think the structures are a little bit more challenging. And it's, every book, as you know, both of you know, every book you write, you get just a little bit better. So the chaos and the relying on just like deadlines and adrenaline is not. And then I'm also doing the books for the New York Times, and I never stopped reviewing for Locus. So there are days where I'm just doing more reading than writing. So it's, those days don't count. So it's still chaos. I just have a little bit more freedom with my time to maybe have lunch while in the midst of chaos and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I can just relax and try to steer myself back on track.
Well, I did want to ask in terms of the New York Times gig that you now have where you're reviewing horror books, has that changed your reading habits at all? And how does that aspect fit into your life, knowing that you've got to produce this column on a regular basis?
It's the main thing that it's added, because I was reading like a maniac anyway. The main thing that it's added to my life that takes time is, the first thing is selecting the books. It's every month. It's almost an impossible task. I'm not gonna say there's 250 amazing horror books coming every month, but there might be 150 books, out of which maybe 75 might bring the goods, and then there's like maybe 25 authors in there that you're like, wow, the last one was really good, so this one is probably really good, and I get to pick four. It's and you want to have stuff in there that's work in translation, and you want to have short story collections, and you want to have a few anthologies here and there, because it's just like, and then from time to time, if you're doing horror, you're gonna throw in one YA novel because there's YA horror and you have to cover it. um, that's the main thing, just like the mental space that occupies. And then you throw in, like, if there's a big book, a new Josh Mallerman, I probably know that Josh is going to get his own review. Stephen King usually gets his own review. So you take those, but I still cover some very big names. So you struggle, do I want to go big name and then try to find the smallest indie out of the bunch to sort of balance that, because this is going to be a bestseller whether I review it or not. But for the indies, coverage might mean, little bump on the needle. And just the mental space that all that stuff occupies every month. And then at the end, I turn my columns in on the first of every month, and then writing it's about 2 days of just, I'm not doing absolutely anything else. I'm focusing on the column. um, I've been doing it almost 2 years, and it still feels daunting when I sit down and I'm like, I'm gonna write a column for the fucking New York Times, and it better be good because my editor is fantastic and he catches everything. So this thing better be good. So that's about 2 3 days of my life that I don't do any other writing. I'm just working on the column. So it affects my life at the beginning of the month and the end, and in the middle I read the exact same amount I was reading before. In fact, I was missing crime so much that I started a column at Crime Reads so I could talk about some of the crime that I was reading, while also reading horror for the New York Times. So always reading, always reading. That's why I'm always behind on movies. So it's
Yeah, there's so much that you've just said there that really resonates with my life and different aspects of it. I mean, I've done a lot of reviewing in
yeah.
my time. I don't review so much anymore, although just hearing you talk now, it's like, God, I should do more reviewing because it's not just about me, but it's about bringing that kind of exposure to people that really need it. But when
But
I
you do
when
this.
I review, like the amount, what was that? Sorry.
You do this. This also accomplishes that. So you're good.
Okay, good, good. It's like
Yeah.
I don't need to add more to, but I'm the type of person that me and Bob have had this conversation a lot. I'm always trying to add more. I'm always burning out. Yeah, there might
Mm,
be a pattern here. What's
yeah,
going
it
on? But
is.
I mean, I would say whenever I was reviewing, like it took so much longer than it will for me to write my fiction because if I'm going to review, I'm going to really do it a good service. And so that will probably mean reading the book multiple times, being really selective on each passage. And I don't know, the time constraint is why I don't do it as much. You know,
Yeah.
if I just kind of read a book for pleasure, then it's quicker. It's less pressure as well. I'm just enjoying the book for what it is. I'm not having to think about how I'm going to talk about it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
See,
And
I know exactly where Gabino's are coming from because with the exception of reading the book, because I do look out for, and so there are multiple sources I go to. I try to have a good at least a month and a half lead time, and I can't just go. Well, I mean, shit, I could just go to bestsellers and just see who's going to be doing a new book. Everybody's got something coming out. You know, I could do that. So I have to balance it, and I have to okay, I have to do an indie. Oh, look, there's a YA I'm really interested in. This one, and then do the rare comic book because I think one, it's not getting enough attention. Two, people, I think it's cool, and three, I don't have to read the fucking thing. Now, I'm going to read it. I'm probably going to buy it. I'm probably the first one who's going to actually use my pre-order link to get it. The link that I put in the lookout for column.
right.
But I don't have time to review. I just don't. I got tired of trying to figure out different words for buy this book. I'm in the thesaurus going buy, okay, purchase.
Yeah.
No, that don't sound right. Because
Yeah.
that's all I was doing. It's like this book's fucking badass. I don't want to spoil it. You should just buy
Yeah.
it. That was my review.
Exactly.
I'm done.
It's I always think it's how can I be a lot more eloquent to say, dude, check this shit out. It's like that sometimes that could be the column. It's like there's a fucking new Junji Ito. That's the review. I don't have to tell you why you should check out Junji's work, right? So it's like that's the whole review, but I can't get paid for that, and it doesn't sound smart. So I have to find new ways to tell you, something's awesome without saying it 6 times in the column and just sounding like a surfer dude in a bad movie. That's does take time, but yeah. But then I'm not doing this because this is like set up, email, record, edit, upload. It's a job. You gave yourselves jobs.
Yeah, I mean, kind of this as horror podcast came about. Like a lot of things have come about in my life where I want to see something in the world. It wasn't there. And I thought, well, I'll create it. And here we are, 12 years and over
Yeah.
600 episodes later, and it's still going.
Yes.
But I mean, just to briefly go back to you mentioning Junji Ito, what a fantastic, crazy writer who I'm so glad to see that, like, in the last few years in particular, he's really just kind of escaped only being known in Japan, and like the whole Western world is picking up on his work. And I think there's like many factors that have come into it, but probably just adapting a number of them for Netflix certainly helped. But if people want to see, goodness, what's almost like the H.R. Geiger equivalent of a story, but through a Japanese weird fiction, almost bizarro lens,
Yes.
it's Junji Ito right there.
Yeah. Anything you're looking for, like weirdness or gore or a little bit of poetry or just fantastic art, it's all there. And yeah, for many years it was sort of halfway through the conversation about horror, someone might drop his name as a, I don't read this kind of book, but I do know Uzumaki, and then that would get the conversation started. And now you get on TikTok, Instagram, and it's like folks with the Junji Ito collection of hardbacks, and everybody's reading the new ones. So yeah, more power to him. He's a fantastic writer, and artist. So everybody should go read Junji Ito right now if they haven't done so yet.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's good to see like so many Japanese writers. Oh, obviously I have a vested interest living in Japan, but there's so many I've noticed recently getting, more recognition. But the most absurd thing I saw was when I think Koji Suzuki was given a lifetime achievement award for horror. The person who wrote The Ring and Darkwater. And there were some people who were saying, and we know the sort, they're like, oh, this is a diversity pick. Why did they put this obscure writer in? It's like, are you fucking kidding me? The Ring
Yeah,
is the most
it's
famous
and anything you
fucking
don't
book
know
from Japan.
is anything you don't know is very obscure to you. So it's yeah, it's I guess it applies. If you don't know it, it's very obscure. So it's very telling when you call certain things obscure.
Yeah. The word woke has been redefined because it used to mean enlightened, and now it seems to mean anything that I don't fucking like.
Yeah,
It's woke.
it's woke.
Ridiculous.
It's a virus. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hate that word. I hate hearing it because I know where they're going with it when people say it, and I hear it at work. You know,
Oh,
uh, and being in Texas, this I had a customer the other day that and we have to help these people out. We don't have to listen to them though. And this guy, it's obviously with the tattoos and everything. Um, you could tell where his allegiance was and everything. And one of our top salespeople was the big giant black man. He's great. He's who I go to for stuff. He's been doing it as long as me. So we put our heads together. We make things happen. And he called him Big Black. I said, well, he's got a name. It's Donald. And I'm sitting here trying to fix this guy's phone. This guy's like, he's like, oh, well, you one of them bleeding heart liberals? I'm like, no, I'm the guy who's fixing your phone that you could have done yourself. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, carry on, man.
yeah.
And,
It's
that's the thing. When you're in tech and you're going to act like that, I can make your phone never work again. Just remember that. Here you go. I don't know what happened, man. Here's your phone back. Yeah, you got
yeah,
a break now. Sorry.
Thing is, most of the time, I don't think they're thinking. Um,
No,
Usually,
yeah, you're right. There's no thought involved.
yeah, I've seen a lot of screaming matches, but I like more when people just reply with questions. Like, yeah, so they, I don't know, they drink the blood of the children. Okay, where do they get the babies? And then you just start asking questions. Just don't yell,
Yeah.
don't call them names. Just ask questions and see where the whole thing goes, and laugh at how quickly the whole thing just gets dismantled. Yeah, I don't know. I have so much anger
Hmm.
from the moment I wake up. I just try to develop tricks throughout the day to not say the most horrible things constantly online. But it's a barrage of stupidity from the moment we get up now. And it takes a lot of
Hmm.
deep breaths and reading good shit and smoking a joint under a tree and watching documentaries and listening to Charles Mingus and doing the type of things that you can get through your day. Um,
Yeah, you're right, man. It's like you wake up and it's like you can avoid the news and you can check out, hey, you know what? I'm going to look at Bloody Disgusting. They're not going to have anything bad on there. And you're drinking your coffee and you're happy, man. You find out a movie's
yeah,
coming out that you heard about. And then they finally got an announcement date and everything like that. And you eat your breakfast and you get in your car and you go to work and you're still really happy. And then everything goes downhill as soon as you encounter another human being.
yeah,
And it's like, I fucking should have just stayed home.
yeah. I was slightly happier at home. Yeah,
I was like, man, can I go back to where I was?
yeah.
Can I, but okay, yeah, no, I don't get no bennies. Okay, sorry.
Well, since we're talking about anger and injustice, that is a good segue to talk about your books. And I think we should
Sure.
talk, initially about The Devil Takes You Home. And I mean, you've got loss and heartbreak from page one, but I understand that this came from a real life event. So, I mean, let's talk a little bit through that.
The I was probably 15 or 20,000 words, I can't remember right now, into The Devil Takes You Home. And I moved to the US in 2008. Between 2008 and me writing this novel, I don't know, 2019, 2020, at least half of that time I'd been uninsured. Unemployed or underemployed or whatever. If I wasn't at UT Austin, because I had health coverage back then, it was mostly gigs that had no health coverage. Um, which was kind of weird and scary in a certain way. Like, I got bit by a spider and I had to buy antibiotics from a drug dealer because I couldn't afford them at the pharmacy. So it led to a couple of weird experiences. So I wanted to talk about those things, and I was going a little bit into how messed up the healthcare system does not work in this country. And in the middle of that, writing that novel, the pandemic hit. I lost my job at the school because they were not bringing the classes that I was teaching back online in August, which meant um, I got my last paycheck and I got my last month of health coverage, and then I was out of a job and not covered during the pandemic. And the fear and the anger and the why are we all going through this situation? And then always that gets you thinking of, if I have this situation, but I'm young and I can move around and I don't have diabetes, it's like, what happens to the people who can't do those things? What happens to people who can no longer work or who are physically not able to leave their homes and you're not covered? And where's the help? And I was just very angry, and all of that went into the story. And after the main character loses his daughter, I think the healthcare system trying to get paid for the death of the daughter sort of becomes another invisible monster that kind of haunts the whole narrative from start to finish. Just because I was angry and I couldn't afford therapy, so that just went into the book.
Right. And I mean, from the start, like the protagonist, Mario, is doing so much to try and be a quote unquote good person and to do things the right way. He doesn't want to take these other avenues, but slowly we just see things getting more and more exhausted. And yeah, the injustice that you feel as kind of the reader, like it really carries through from the weight of the words. And I think it kind of brings to mind, the question that I would say is at the surface of all of your novels, all of your stories, perhaps of life in general. It's like, when does doing bad actions make you a bad person? What's the line between a bad person and bad actions? And if a good person is doing bad things for the right reasons, like that, the world is so morally gray.
Yeah, I think you just absolutely nailed it. I love to write about people doing the worst possible things for all the right reasons. We're all flawed, and we're all violent in different ways, or vengeful in in other ways, or you don't know how it's going to come out. You don't know when you're going to reach someone's breaking point, but everyone has one. So how desperate do you have to be to do that first thing that you thought you were never going to do? And then if that doesn't work, how desperate do you have to be to do the next thing that you told yourself that you were such a good person that you were never going to do this, but now maybe your life depends on it, or you cannot feed your children if you don't do that thing. So it's like, when you're outside and you see um, those stories of someone who had a nice job and a nice car, and then they started gambling, or they started drinking, or they tried a little bit of cocaine, and then you see that stumble all the way down from afar. It looks very clear. It's like a clear cut story that you've seen before. When stuff happens to you, you don't see it coming. You're like, it's one thing, and then it's another, and then you make a decision that you thought was right, and then what you did was just fucked it up severely, and now you have to make another decision, and then you're the one who's stumbling, but you don't see that. And I like to write about those characters. Go, we all stumble, and then it's like, what am I going to do now? And that decision says a lot about not necessarily you. It says a lot about you, but also about your circumstances. Like, would if you had different set of circumstances, would you make the same decision? And playing with those characters is always a lot of fun.
I went through something like that years ago, um, where I had decided that I wanted to change careers. I didn't like what I was doing, and I ended up leaving that career. And I went through unemployment. I managed to get unemployment. I applied for it, and they granted it. And I had some money in savings, and I went through all of that. And I'm here to tell you that you can get up every morning and try to change your career. You can get up every morning. You can have all your applications out and everything like that. And you can do every single thing Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. and knock on people's doors at businesses. I need to talk to the manager. I'm trying to get a job and da 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 da. And you can do all that. And one day you're going to find yourself with an eviction notice in one hand and the people coming to get your truck on the phone on the other hand.
Yeah.
I think everybody is 72 hours away from a bad decision that could put you out in the fucking street.
Yes, sir.
And it's like, and trust me, it's because I was there, you know, and I had to make the hardest phone call ever in my
Yeah.
life. And I didn't call mom, I called dad. So that's because that's how bad it was. And I was like, hey, I need help. And he's like, okay, so what's going on? And I explained it to him, and he said, I will help you, but you have to get a job. I'm like, well, I've been trained. He goes, no, and I can appreciate that. He goes, but man, he goes, you need to go where you can get you a job tomorrow. He goes, and if that means selling cars again, then you start selling cars again.
The cars. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can get a job selling cars as long as your driver's license is good. Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
uh, and that's what I did. But yeah, he had to bail me out, and I made a promise to myself that they were never going to bail me out again, and they haven't.
There you
So
go.
but yeah, I was within minutes of not having a place to live and not having a vehicle to drive. And if you don't have either one of those, pretty soon you ain't got a phone to use because you're out of money and then you're starving and you're out on the streets.
Yep. And then
What
guess
would I
what?
have done? Turn to
You still
crime. I would've-
once you're
yeah.
out, that's not the bottom. You still need money. You still want all those
Yeah.
things back. You still want to get your phone, and you want to, maybe not spend the night out. If you can scrape together $60 for motel, that'd be fine, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you
Yeah, it
hit the
would
bottom
be.
and then you keep digging. You're not done yet. So how do you get out?
And
Imagine you
it's
call that and
writing
that
about
was
criminals.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
They're desperate, unpredictable. And that's, I mean, yeah, you know it, I know it. Michael knows it because we all kind of blend the weird crime as I call it. You know, but I love criminals as protagonists because they'll fucking do anything, and they
Yeah.
react to supernatural shit like really strangely. It's like I shot it 6 times, and it's like it's still moving. Something's not right, you know. So
Let's go
yeah, that's
together
some
to
that's some
figure it
crazy
out.
shit. Yeah,
And of course, the other thing that we see is then the deeper Mario gets into this criminal world, the more he's sucked in again and again. And then, as well with this question of morality, he starts justifying the things that he's doing. And he's like, well, these are terrible fucking people. There are injustices that are happening. They deserve to die or they deserve to suffer. And I mean, it's difficult to argue with the logic, but then it's like, well, should you be the one to be delivering that suffering? And kind of a personal question. Some people are probably like, no, but I don't know. It
I
it
don't
depends on the
yeah,
situation. And when he knows as well that he's gonna rid the world of a monster and he's
yeah.
going to benefit himself and thus help good people. God, it's then difficult to say that crime is the bad choice at that point.
It's again, it's those characters are the ones that I enjoy the most. Are you going to do the bad thing? Sure. But why? I think that's what makes them interesting, right? They're criminals. So we know they're probably going to take the wrong choice. But how interesting can you make the taking of that decision, the making of that decision, taking that route? How does that work? I started teaching romance when I started teaching creative writing at universities, and I had never been a fan of the genre. I understood how the formula worked, but I had to study it to understand, a little bit more so I could help my students write better romance. And the formula goes, they start, they can't be together, and then they have a happily ever after. You can change up a few things along the way. Make them both women, a guy and a ghost, whatever you want. But the point is, they all have the same formula. It triumphs or it fails based on how you complicate things. And in that way, I think a bunch of genres that we love, horror and crime and sci-fi, they tend to behave in the exact same way. It's like you kind of know that if you're watching a sci-fi movie about some folks stuck on a alien planet, it's not going to be a happy movie. Something is going to show up. There will be blood. Um, you already know that, but you don't stop watching if the movie's good. Like, how many times can we have aliens and still make it good? that's what we know. The crime, we know pulling the trigger, we know demons and werewolves and haunted houses, we know all of it, but we can keep it fresh. Like we can do new things with it. Let's play with form. Let's play with the way that we approach this thing. Breathe new air into it, and then we have what we have.
And I mean, talking about breathing new air into it and presenting things in a fresh way, I mean, on the surface and the way that a lot of your stories start, you could think, okay, you're going to get a straight crime novel, particularly House of Bone and Rain, I would say.
Yeah.
But then, you introduce the supernatural and you show these other more overt horror elements. In a way, it reminds me a little bit of when Chuck Palahniuk said that you can tell the truth through fiction better than you can through nonfiction. So I'm wondering if there's a little bit of that going on here. And at what point did you know that you wanted the supernatural and horror to become part of your crime stories? And was that always the way that you've done it?
I started. I think I fell in love. I know I fell in love with horror first. So I always thought I was going to be a horror writer. But then when I discovered crime, it was that revelation of like I'm kind of having the same feelings. I'm anxious. I'm excited. I'm laughing sometimes. There's a lot of blood and violence. Like I like these two things just as much. And then it took me, maybe 20 years to figure out that I can write a horror story, I can write a crime story, or I can write a mix of both. And that's a lot of fun because you just pluck elements from each one of those genres and then you do whatever the hell you want. There's like no rules. You like demons, you can give them guns. It's like it's this idea of like just giving yourself permission to do stuff, which I think a lot of young writers we just don't, because the rules, the books that made you, you know how those work. So you're sort of tied to all those rules and regulations. And if you study writing, which thankfully I didn't, but if you study writing, then they're going to give you even more rules and regulations than the ones that you pick up from books. And then you're not willing to go to those places, and it's actually the opposite. Just go to those places. You want to make it horrific and very gory and also funny. Please do it. Go give us that. Are you a super fan of what's the term now? Spicy novels, but you also love horror and you want to do spicy horror? Please do that. Do whatever makes you happy. Make it weird. Make it kinky. Make it political. Play with the genre. Have a lot of fun with it.
Have you found that since being picked up by Mulholland that you've had to be more concerned with genre, or has this ever come up in conversations? Have they wanted to know, like, look, are we marketing more crime or are we marketing more horror? What are we doing? Where are we putting this book?
Mulholland is very weird because they have certain books that I would call horror, but they're a crime imprint. Um, I think they've done this combination of not telling people what it is, uh, calling it a dark thriller, but then being very clear about we call them dark thrillers or whatever, but it's from the guy that writes horror. So whatever the marketing team has been doing so far, I think it works. They might mention the surreal elements as being more literary, depending on where they're pitching the book. Um, so I think they've done a good job of we signed the weird guy, and every novel is going to be a weird mix and we don't know what it is, but it'll be dark and hopefully thrilling. So it'll be a dark thriller. And yeah, and then I don't have to worry about genre at any point in time. I don't think about genre when I'm writing. I don't think about genre when I'm editing. I often think about it when people ask, or when I start thinking about marketing, because then if you do the wrong kind of marketing, like I picked, the publishing is very, very, very slow. So I picked the title for House of Bone and Rain before everything was House of blah blah and blah, yeah. It was before that. So then I got caught up in that thing, and you're like, hey, listen, I it's not there's no dragon fucking. This is not that book. Don't pick it up because you think it's one of those houses and then find underwater monsters. Don't get mad at me. So it's always a challenge. They call it one thing. The horror community knows what it is. Um, I'm always calling it Barrio Noir because it's easier to not have to explain it. So, yeah, genre is just funny like that. Never think about it until it's done, and then you obsess about it for a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting to hear because I remember, I mean, back in the day when your first two books were with Broken River Books, I would think of them as more a kind of, I guess, like transgressive and kind of between the margins. I mean, they certainly liked crime, but they were always reluctant to kind of say, like, oh, this is crime. It was Barrio Noir, was essentially the label. But then now you've gone to Mulholland, and every time they've sent me an email, my impression is they're marketing you more as a horror writer. So actually, when I picked up House of Bone and Rain, I wondered if it was going to be more overtly horror. Okay, Gabino shifted. Well, actually, you're kind of doing the same thing that you've always been doing, but then the bit of fuckery with Mulholland is, but you're a crime imprint, but then you're marketing him as horror, and
Yeah,
I didn't know what to expect, but I was not disappointed because it was kind of business as usual, but taken to another level. Like there's certainly been a progression in terms of what you're doing.
I think it was the first. It was the first novel, not short story, but the first novel that started, and I had maybe 10,000 words, and I was convinced it was probably going to. I was convinced that I could force it to be a crime, period, a crime novel. I was like, the whole thing started with me thinking, if this event, the shooting of the mother that happens at the beginning of House of Bone Rain happened to me and my friends, if we had an opportunity to quote unquote make things right, let me tell that story. And as soon as I hit how do I help these kids? Because they are kids. They're not men. They're not bad men. They're kids. How do I help them get this done? And then immediately it was like, you have to talk about storms, which will give you an opportunity to talk about colonialism, but also, hey, storms are weird, and the Tainos have huracan. And immediately it was like, no, you can't do straight crime because you want to do all those things, and you want to be having monster babies in the middle of the storm because that's how you have your fun writing. So it for about 10,000 words, it was 100% a crime novel, and then it just went downhill, and the other mayhem began.
So you were saying that House of Bone and Rain was not only really inspired, but based on real life events for you when you were growing up. So, can you talk us through that a little bit? And is the group of friends that this is based on, are you friends with them all still to this day? Are you still tight?
It's with most of them, yeah. I didn't want to tell a story that was loosely based on all of them without letting them know. So I didn't. I want to sound like a good guy and say that I asked for permission, but I didn't. I just let them know, and I was. It was one of those conversations that as soon as you get it over with, you realize none of them read. So it was not it was not going to be a problem anyway, even if I didn't tell them. But no, I was a senior in high school, and one of my friends, his mom was working security at a club, and there was a drive by, and she took two bullets to the face and dropped dead. And we cried and we hugged and we planned we're gonna avenge your mother and we're gonna do this and we're gonna do that. But that's not that's what happens in movies and in novels. You don't really do that. You don't know where to start. You don't have the firepower. You don't know where to ask questions. So we did fuck all. We did absolutely nothing. But that stuck with me, and for about 20 years, I thought about that novel in which I gave us an opportunity to make things right. And I never thought I had the skills to write it. I think we sometimes have ideas that we don't have the chops for yet, so we wait. But after The Devil Takes You Home, it's there's this thing about when you get nominated to stuff, and when you win awards, the ego boost. It's not. It's amazing. It's like if it happens at a point where you're thinking, as always, I'm a hack. I can't do this. And then you get nominated to something the week after you're running with the fuel of that thing. Like, hey, so a couple of people read it and they liked it and they thought it was good enough to nominate to something, and then you run with it. So in that way, those are fantastic. But the rest of the time, you're just maybe not feeling it, and you know that you're not there yet. So it took me 20 years to get that novel out, to finally think I had the chops to write it, only because the devil did well. So that allowed me to let me tell this story now and give us a different ending, because the whole thing started, how can I give us a happy ending, but immediately became another one of my books. So it's not a happy ending. It's a different ending than the one we really had.
Yeah, and that also raises a kind of interesting question about self doubt and about like our own confidence as writers. Because I mean, we've had enough of these discussions that it kind of doesn't matter how much acclaim one gets. The self doubt, it doesn't go away. It just perhaps manifests in slightly different forms, or you just keep writing in spite of it being there. So, I mean, if we look at things for you now, you obviously had a lot of success with The Devil Takes You Home. I think House of Bone and Rain has been incredibly well received as well. Where are you in terms of that kind of confidence to pursue ideas that you have? And what are you doing on the days where perhaps it is a little bit waning?
There are no there are no great days. I think there are decent days, and then a whole bunch of days where you're just you're struggling. It's I don't think success plays any role for most of the writers that I know. So when I think about successful writers, I think about folks like Paul Tremblay, Stephen Graham Jones, Josh Mallerman. Um, I think about them, and I've been a fan for a very long time, and they're going harder now than ever before. Or they're going just as hard and writing just as much as they did when no one knew their names. So it puts you in this situation where it's like I don't compare myself directly to anybody else, but everybody that I kind of look up to is not resting on their laurels. Like, they've been translated to every country, and they have, Hollywood movies and best New York Times bestseller status. And when I look at them, they're putting in the work. So it's like, even on days when I'm not feeling it, it's just like, I'm not doing it for the awards. I'm not doing it for the recognition. I'm not doing it to get invitations to events. I'm doing it because I want to share these stories. And I'm working really, really, really hard at it because I want to be in that crowd. I want to be mentioned with Tenerife Do. I want to be mentioned with Stephen Graham Jones. If I can somehow make it into that conversation, I don't care about being, the worst seller of the bunch. I don't care about any of that other stuff. I told the story that I wanted to tell, and it worked, and it allowed me to take a little walk amongst the giants, and that, at the end of the day, is, it gets me through all of those. I'm a hack. I'm never going to finish this novel. I can't do it. If I finish it, it's going to be unsellable. It's too violent. It's too weird. It's too dark. Those are normal days. So I just, you use the word write in spite of it. I write in spite of myself. I write in spite of the voices. Um, and I write out of spite. It's like, they told me I couldn't, and they told me I couldn't create my own genre, and they told me I couldn't use Spanglish. So when everything else fails, I still have spite to get me through the day.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are writing in our own genres now. I think that's kind of what's going on. If you look at, we mentioned Eric LaRocca before, but I mean, what even is that other than LaRockian horror? That's
Yes.
what it is. And, I really like Danger Slater's work, almost a kind of post Vonnegut, a kind of bizarro adjacent dark horror, but it's Danger Slater. That's the genre.
That's
The
the genre.
obvious example is Joe R. Lansdale as well. Joe R. Lansdale has been writing the Joe R. Lansdale genre forever. He's never given a fuck as to what kind of conventions this fits into. And
Yeah, I
perhaps
would
there's
add,
something about the landscape that we're in now as well that affords us that possibility, and that there are options. If we don't get picked up by a mainstream publisher, there's all sorts of independent presses. If we believe in the story and we don't get picked up by the independent press, well, we can put it out ourselves. I think, but I'd have to check. But I have a feeling that's how V Castro got her start, just putting it out,
yeah.
believing in her work.
It's the golden age for a variety of reasons, and one of those reasons is, I would say, the bravest, most boundary pushing works of fiction are currently being published by indie presses, and in many cases and in many genres, indie presses are leading the charge in terms of the most amazing covers and the most unique layouts. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things happening with indie presses. I think there's a lot more variety and diversity in terms of agents and what agents are looking for now, what they're convinced that they can sell. Um, some of that goes, hand in hand with them being maybe more modern. Because I have friends who have very, very old agents who've been along, for 50 years, and there's new blood in agenting that's doing great things, and then also readers have turned out. And when you say Silvia Moreno Garcia, New York Times bestselling author, when you say S.A. Cosby, best New York Times bestselling author, Stephen Graham Jones, Paul Tremblay, you're saying you can sell horror. If you don't want to, it's fine, but you can sell horror nowadays. And if none of that works for you, or you're simply very impatient, you can hire a cover artist. Don't use AI bullshit. You hire a cover artist, and in a couple weeks, you have a book. And you can go on podcasts, and you can send it out to folks on TikTok. So there's absolutely no reason for us not getting the biggest, the most amazing diversity of voices that we've ever gotten, because you have a way always to get your story out. And that's, I think that's what making horror so magical right now. You don't have there's no limit to what you can do. You can say, this is the cozy body horror thing that I want to mix together. I don't know how. It doesn't work. Fuck you. I'll publish it myself. We'll figure out if it works along the way. It's That's what makes it the golden era. We're all here, and there's a space at the table for absolutely everyone.
You said it. I mean, the indies are putting it out, but I mean, I'm also seeing the big publishers taking a lot of risk too
Yeah.
and paying off. With horror being at basically right now the number one genre. I mean, if you think about it, and you don't even have to think about it, it's the number one genre. That means that people who are not into horror are actually dipping their toes into it. We've already got a smorgasbord across the board of diverse writers from all ages, creeds, races, ethnicity, all of that. We have it. The only way you're going to stand out is to be fearless and to push boundaries and to put out the work, cross genres. That's the only way you're going to get your name out there. And you have to individualize your work, create a brand. It's all, this is all so very important. And you still have to write a good story, on
Yes.
top of that. And I know we were talking before we even started recording. And the thing, like right now, that the one thing that keeps pushing me on, and I think this should be everyone's mantra going forward, is there's a very successful video game franchise based off the ludicrous idea that there are demons on Mars. If they can make $1 billion then I can make some money. I can get my work out there.
Yes.
And I mean, I wanted to shift back to House of Bone and Rain. So we spoke a little bit about the setup. So I think that probably serves as an elevator pitch for a number of people who haven't read it. I mean, for me, it's kind of an ultra violent Stand By Me set in Puerto Rico, as if kind of through the lens of Quentin Tarantino. I mean, it's a hard one to describe, but I mean, specifically with the violence, there's something very interesting because it's not really stylized, it's not over the top. It's pretty kind of in your face and realistic. So I want to know, how conscious is that in terms of your approach to violence and making it realistic? And do you have any tips for people looking to write violence within their fiction?
Yeah. Violence is a it's one of my favorite subjects. I teach workshops on writing violence. Violence is everywhere. If you're reading The Giving Tree to your children, that is an incredibly fucking violent book about taking and taking greedily, and not giving anything in return. It's a book about abuse in many ways. So, yeah, look at the literature for children. There's a wolf trying to devour you, or trying to devour your grandmother, or you're lost in the woods. Like, violence, or the promise of violence, is always there. And some of my favorite work in horror and in crime fiction doesn't shy away from it. So I grew up knowing that when I wrote my stories, it was not going to be one of those where, like in movies, something's about to happen, and then there's a blackout. And then I didn't want to do that. I understood early on that if you're going for creepy, then you shouldn't be showing the whole monster. And there's a little bit of that in Zero Saints, someone gets their fingers cut off and thrown in a bucket. Hey, Gabino, what's in the bucket? What's in the bucket? I'm not gonna tell anybody what's in the bucket. You figure it out. But in other, I want clear cut, straightforward violence that has a message. Like, we're gonna chop off a kid's toe in The Devil Takes You Home for a very particular reason, and I'm gonna be talking about religion while we do that. If we beat the crap out of some racists outside of a barbecue joint, yes, it's violent. Yes, it's fun, but there's a message behind that violence. In House of Bone and Rain, there's a lot of vengeance, there's a lot of anger, a lot of macho BS, but there's reasons for all of those things. And then for those of you, you asked about those who are writing, just there's a level of violence that speaks to you, a level of violence that you feel it fits your work. Do that. There's no too far when it comes to violence. The only fight, to use a bad word, the only fight I had with Josh Kendall, my wonderful editor at Mulholland, with House of Bone and Rain, was there's a scene where a guy breaks, he stabs a dude in the face until he breaks the blade, and he killed that scene and said, "This is too much." And it didn't sit well with me because I was like, that's, he had a good excuse. Sometimes you have reasons to stab someone in the face until you break the knife. Um, and actually, I started writing an explanation of why I thought the scene worked, and then I stopped and I emailed back and I said, in the previous book that you bought first, we cut off a kid's toe and the kid can't defend himself. This is standard violence between two consenting adults, and I think that should stay. And I was very scared because I was fighting my big editor, and his answer was, haha, fair enough. And then the scene is in the book. So even if someone tries to cut back on your violence, you can always fight back, uh, and leave that violence in there. If you're using it well, violence drives the point home. Like we mentioned briefly John Wick before. It's like, uh, the dude kills 500 people for over 4 movies, and we're there. We're rooting for him. It's like, do you know how many dozens of dead men ago the puppy died? It doesn't matter. We're in it for the ride, and we're in it for all the gun foo, and we're in it for all the shots to the face, and all the explosions, and killing people in very creative ways. And we're not going to feel bad for those people's families or their partners or their children, because 500 people, you murder 500 people, that's a lot of families that you affect. But we don't care because we like John Wick and the way he does it. It's cool. And also because they fucking killed his puppy, and that still hurts, and so we go along with it. So if it works for John Wick, and it worked for Tarantino, and it works for Clive Barker, and it works for S.A. Cosby, embrace that violence and just do whatever feels right.
Yeah, and to talk about the puppy, I mean, that's the thing. It's like if you injure me, if you cut off my limb, that's one thing, but you fuck with the dog, that's it.
That
500 motherfuckers gotta die at this point.
yeah.
And I mean, you said before that sometimes, you worry your book might be too violent, but was the worry specific to your editor, as a result of this conversation, or is the worry to do with the market? Like, what is the specific worry?
So when I was doing this as an indie, it was, I only had to convince one person. For Serious Saints and Coyote songs, I only had to convince David Osborne, who had fantastic taste. He published Stephen Graham Jones, When by When, way back then. He published Scott Adelberg. He published a lot of amazing books, but I only had to convince him because that was how indie worked. It was one dude running the whole show. He likes it, he edits it, he finds you a cover, and you're done. Now it's is my agent gonna like it? Because if she doesn't love it, then I feel like she's not. She might try to sell it anyway, but I want her to really love it. And then when we find an editor, is this an editor who is alone there, who's going to struggle the whole way trying to get my book anything? Or is one of those instances where my editor loved it and passed it around the office and everybody's in love with the book, which is like, utopia. You live in fear of all those things. So when I'm writing, I'm not thinking about any of that. I'm writing. Um, when I'm not writing and I'm thinking, okay, I had a 2 book deal and that's 2 books done. And now I'm back to square one. At least I have an agent. What's going to happen with my career next? Then I'm thinking, all right, how weird is this novel? Because if the agent loves it, she still has to write a fantastic letter recommending it. And what else is out there that might work in my favor? Like, this is a little bit like, but there's nothing right now that compares to it. So if you're trying to be too original, sometimes you're just shooting yourself in the face because people don't know how to deal with it. There's no record of what to do with a novel, like whatever you wrote. I think Bob's a little bit in the same boat right now. It's like you're creating something and you're like at the end, I'll edit it and I'll throw it out there and see what happens, and then maybe people click with it, and maybe they don't. But right now, all I have to do is finish it, and there's nothing else that I can control. So it's, do I worry about the violence? Not right now. Do I worry about the type of violence and the weirdness and the magic? Not now. When I have to send it, I'll be like, oh shit, did I do it again? Did I write an unsellable novel? We'll figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've got this one lingering image in my head for this project that is probably quite possibly one of the most violent things that I'm ever going to attempt to write. And the violent part of it is going to be off off camera, but the I guess the reveal of it is just as violent as what it took to get there. And I'm gonna do it. And it's one of those to where it's like it's going in. The biggest editor in the world could sit there and try to talk me out of it, and I'd be like, no, it's not coming
No.
out. you know, uh, like with the small hours is coming out, they're ghoulish, uh, which we know how they are. The more crazy, the better.
Yeah.
I've got an incredibly violent scene in there, but we don't actually see it. We see the results of it. Vampires will do anything to keep their bodies together. And it's like, oh, I'm pretty damaged, but I can make this work. I'm part of the undead now. And it's like, and when I thought of this, I was like, holy shit, man, they're gonna go no way. And it's like, no, it's great. I loved it. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I love you. That's such a good feeling.
Yeah, but I mean, for Bob and for everyone else, and kind of one of the overarching themes of this conversation is you just got to write what you want to write. You've got to be authentically you, and you're doing the writing and your readers a disservice if you don't. Like, that's why we can't think about commercialism and marketing in the stage of creativity. But I wonder, there was something that you said, like, kind of your fear is if you give it to your agent and then she doesn't, not even doesn't respond to it, but doesn't love it. And so hopefully this is just a hypothetical, but I don't know what the situation is. But if that happens, if you give her a book and she maybe doesn't think she can sell it or is a little bit less infused, what do you think you're going to do in that situation? And let's assume too that you really do believe in this book. Do you try to kind of figure it out and come to some compromise, or does your contract allow you to then go and kind of peddle that or put that out independently, or does it get kind of put on the back burner until there is like the right opportunity and the
Yeah,
rightly infused person for that project?
that's a great question. Very clearly, if a book doesn't work for her, uh, I can just send the next one, and she can work on that one. Now, if I finish the book, um, if I picked this one idea out of all the other ideas, and I went through the process of writing the book, and then I got her to a point where I was comfortable enough to send it to my agent. She's the agent that fell in love with a book that other agents would have hated. So I can probably find an editor who loves the book. I can at least try. So I can very well do that without my agent, because I did it for 4 books without my agent. And then it just becomes, the thing about the agent that changes your life is they have contacts and ways of doing things where they get you paid. Now, if I find a way to publish the other book, will I get paid? I don't have to work at anything else and I can cover my own insurance paid? Or am I taking a few steps back and just trying to hustle just as hard as always, so I can start seeing some money up front, because I would probably get no advance. And if I end up going with an indie, depending on the indie, it may be limited distribution or publish on demand or something else. But the book itself, if I believe in it enough to finish it and live with it, and then read it again and edit that thing and leave it alone for 2 weeks and pick it back up and not throw the computer against the wall and be like, this is salvageable, and then I write it again until it's somewhat good, and then I send it to her and she hates it. Um, I'm very lucky. I know a lot of amazing, amazing indie presses, and I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but I think sometimes when you have a record of like, hey, I did this book that got this nomination, or was translated into X amount of things, or here's my track record. I've been doing this for a while. I think that opens a few doors that not a lot of people have open when we start out. We just know absolutely no one. We're just knocking on doors blindly. After you've been at this for a while, I've I'm a huge fan of a lot of places that accept manuscripts without an agent, and I would immediately turn to any of them and try to figure something out. The only thing is the book has to come out. I cannot vanish into oblivion and never again publish. So even if my agent hates the next 12 novels, I will be sad that she does. I would be surprised if we still work together after she hates half a dozen. But let's say it happens and we stay together. I'll go sideways and with her blessing, try to find a way to get the stories out anyway, even if you can't sell them.
Yeah, and it's good to hear that there's no kind of exclusivity clause that would mean that you weren't allowed to do that. I mean, that would feel like a red flag if it's like, look, I'm the only one who can sell your work, and if I don't like it, you're screwed. And it's like, well, no, that's a
Yeah,
toxic relationship. That is not a good situation.
almost abusive. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, talking about shitty situations, you mentioned like your health insurance and that being a consideration. And, sometimes being from the UK and living in Japan, I forget about how critical that is in the US. And so I'm wondering, I mean, at the moment, do you get your insurance through, the work you're doing at the university, or is there some sort of private insurance company? Like, how does that work out for you? Because I know a number of writers. I mean, the reason that they have their day job is to keep
Yep.
that insurance.
Yeah, it totally is. And when you start talking to writers who have kids, many years ago, I remember doing I interviewed Paul Tremblay for the LA Times, and we spent maybe an hour doing the interview, but we talked on the phone for maybe 3 hours, and I asked, at this point in your career, why are you coaching basketball and teaching math? And the answer immediately was, I got two kids who need the coverage, and I need to save my pennies because both of them want to go to college. So there's this confusing idea of full time writers not having other jobs, and a lot of us, it's like, yeah, a low residency program, basically you stay at home and I can write at all hours of the day, but you keep it. So for the last 2 years with UCR, that's coverage about 8 or 9 months out of the year, and then I go with Aetna or whoever's around, and I pay out of pocket the other couple of months of the year that I'm not covered. But the dream, right? The goal is to have that thing where you're never thinking about it anymore. I think that's the rich part. That's when you become rich, when you can stop worrying about those things. Like, oh, yeah, I have insurance. I only think about it when I'm sick, because then I pull out my card and then I go and I use it and I get my meds immediately. And I think everyone deserves that freedom of just not having to think about it all the time. Think about people who have sick kids or sick grandparents, or you know it's awful. I think we're an amazing country who should certainly do fucking better when it comes to taking care of people.
Yeah, this is why a number of, stories set in America just they wouldn't work in Europe or they wouldn't work
Yeah,
in Japan. If you look at Breaking Bad, that is a uniquely American story because if it happened in the UK, okay, well, I'll go to the NHS and they'll treat me.
yeah, that's it. It's
That's
that
the end
easy,
of the
right?
story. It would be most
Yeah,
dissatisfying. It's
it's a very
just about
boring
a poor
novel.
middle-aged guy, a chemistry teacher who's got cancer. That's
Yeah,
it.
Yeah. I mean, it would take the thrust away. I could see how they could still be a story. He could be some egomaniac, the best chemistry teacher in the world. You think your meth's good? You ain't seen
you
shit
haven't
yet.
tasted it.
Yeah, and he just gets caught up in there because of ego. But the whole, uh, you know, that could work. It works better if you have a totally innocent reason
Yeah.
why you want to do this, and you become the monster, the one who knocks. Yeah, there you go.
And so with House of Bone and Rain, this is very much a book of a close-knit group of friends, of brotherhood, and I mean, I'm wondering, what do you think is the test as to whether a friend is a true brother, is a true friend, and what are perhaps some moments in your life where you've realized either somebody was or was not actually there for you?
It's I think it happens at a bunch of different points in life. I think it's very, very strange to not be an absolute idiot when you're 16, 17. In my case, 18 and 19. It's it just being an idiot was the one thing that we were all good at. And when you're an idiot and you don't have to think about anybody else, um, let's go steal some stuff together. Would you help me would you help me do this thing? Would you take a bullet for me when you're drunk? The answer is always yes. And then some people stay in that life, and then other people, well, you call them up and you go, hey, can you help me bury a body? And they're like, I don't know. I'm with my kids at soccer. Like, I can't leave my kids alone and go bury a body right now on a Saturday morning. So it's not that you grow out of those relationships. It's just that things change, and so the bullshit macho stuff that you used to do at 18, at 28 you might doubt it, and then maybe at 38 you're like, wow. And then if you live, I don't know, but folks who live to 48 probably look back and they're like, damn, that was idiotic. And then if you get to be a grandparent, then yeah, you get to tell everybody what to do and what not to do, right? So it's easy to be an idiot when you're young, and to be an idiot for your friends, and then sometimes you're like, no, I'm not giving you my company's car so we can drive to Vegas. Like, we're not doing that, dude. So it's not that you love them less. It's just that people outgrow certain things. So I think it comes at different times for every relationship, different points in time.
It's interesting that you mention the kind of being at soccer practice with your kids as an
Yeah,
example, because I mean, it got me thinking it's not that your loyalty or, the loyalty quality as a person
yeah,
disappears. It's that your loyalty shifts. And it's like,
yeah,
look, if I'm helping somebody, let's say, bury a body at 20, if I get caught or something bad happens, largely the consequences affect me.
yeah,
But if it happens kind of now, and like, I've got a 7-year-old daughter, I got another child on the way.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
now so, and I think as well, looking at the relationship you have with people, it's like, if I let down my 30 or 40 something friend, you're a goddamn grown ass man. But if daddy goes to prison for 20 years,
yeah. It's not
seems a
that
little bit
anymore.
harsh, did it? Yeah.
It goes back to what I said. Every person in this planet is 72 hours away from fucking total doom.
Yeah,
It's just one
Yeah.
decision. I was just helping him. It's like, that's it. You're done.
Yeah, which I think kind of lends into another question. So this is obviously a story that is triggered by revenge and anger. You said this was something, obviously, at the time in the real life incident, you kind of thought about doing, and then actually, no, you didn't.
yeah.
When is and isn't revenge a good response?
Always, it's always a good response. Uh, the tricky part is, you after you've gotten revenge enough times, you learn that it's never as fulfilling as you wanted it. Maybe the moment itself, it's glorious. 10 minutes later, it's already kind of deflating, and you're back to like, fuck, I'm still angry, right? Like, this didn't undo whatever was done to me. But the thing is that sometimes just driving towards that revenge is what carries you from being completely destroyed and in grief and hurt and feeling guilty. And that might, as it has happened in 1,000 stories, a gazillion stories, if it gives you a reason to get up in the morning, it's the right decision. Go go get that revenge, and then when it's done, we'll figure it out. But revenge is always the right answer, and especially when it comes to fiction. I should probably add that, especially when it comes to fiction, revenge is always the best answer, the only answer, the only plausible answer. The most entertaining answer is go forth and do the worst thing possible. So whatever revenge you can think of, hell yeah, add a little bit more violence. That's always what I suggest. Think of a bad revenge, and then make it a little bit worse, and then go and make it happen.
I guess that works until you get old. And you're right. When the times that I can remember when I was able to take revenge on something, it's never. it's like you have to, and if you're relaying that story to someone else, you actually have to kind of hype it up, because there's points where your friends will be like, "You got pissed off about that?
Yeah.
What
Why?
the fuck's wrong with you? You know why?" And
Why?
so, at my age, I enjoy it, and I'll probably say it wrong, but I guess it's Schadenfreude.
Yeah.
When when people
Just
cause their
wait.
own misfortune,
Just wait. Yeah.
and they fucking deserve it, and you're just like going, "Oh, look at you, you poor soul." See, I can get more satisfaction in that. It's just because all you have to do is look at it. You don't have to sleep with it.
Or wash it off.
Yeah. Whoa, yeah.
Yeah, so some people might be wondering whether revenge is more big, if it's a good idea because it's more for the fulfillment it will bring yourself, or because the person who you're committing the revenge against should find out part of the fuck around and find out equation. But I
Yeah.
feel from what you've said, the answer is both. Both are important for
Yeah.
self
Yeah.
fulfillment and for just not letting motherfuckers get away with wrong things.
Exactly. Exactly. I think let's take an example from the news somewhat recently. If you're in a room and someone throws up a straight arm salute, you break that arm, because that ensures that no other arms go up in any similar way. But if you let that slide, suddenly it's two arms or three arms or five arms, and then you're running because you just realize you're in a room full of Nazis. So you look around and you're like, who else is really pissed at that? And then, should we break that person's arm? Everyone who signs up is probably a good person. And then whoever is like, no, 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 everybody should have the right to be as much of a Nazi as they want, then you know in what group they belong, and then you take action. So yeah, now you do, like I said, you do have to accept it's never going to solve anything. It's not going to be as fulfilling as you expected it to be. I like what Bo was saying. Sometimes you just sit back and you're like, all right, so you were a horrible person to my friends, and then to me, it's a matter of time before you're nasty to enough people, and then someone will say something online, and then everybody will start talking, and I don't have to do anything. I just lean back and just smile and enjoy the finding out part of the proceedings.
Yeah, there's a tendency, we've seen with different people where they'll say something like mildly offensive, let's say, but they have much stronger feelings and no one reacts and they ignore them. And it's like they keep talking to themselves until finally they get a reaction and blow up their entire career.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they just they got tired of publishing or writing or whatever it happens to be, because this is not unique to publishing and writing.
No, no, we just see it every week, but it happens everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what doesn't happen everywhere and what doesn't happen in all books is at about the
Mm.
40 or 50% mark. And this isn't really a spoiler because of how vague I'm being, but that you just decide, let's add fish people into the
Yes.
mix. How,
Yeah.
how and when did this come about? Did you know from the start that this was? Well, in fact, I don't think you knew from the start, because didn't you say originally this was just going to be a straight crime book? So when did you
Yeah.
go from this as 100% crime book to surprise the fish people are here?
The fish people show up in a few other things that I had written before. So they were always in the back of my head. And at some point, after I started thinking about, well, this is the summer because it happened during the summer, it would be ideal if a bad storm hits now, because that way we take the authorities out of the equation. Like when the storm comes and the chaos that follows, the cops just run home and stay hidden away, and then they're not a problem. And in the process of thinking about that, I was like, this is going to be happening in the same place that these other stories take place. So I should probably make that larger. And I'm already going supernatural, so it'd be nice to add that layer. Just because I don't feel they're feeling the threat enough. So I want them to feel like they're battling themselves. They're battling a very bad drug lord, and now there's creepy stuff coming out of the ocean that's also after them. And that way you can triangulate your anxiety at all moments, and it makes it for a little bit more fun reading.
Yeah, I think it especially makes it kind of more cinematic for like a kind of horror movie as well. I could imagine that in the trailer, or in fact, if you didn't have it in the trailer, you could almost go kill list where you switch genres halfway through. It's like,
Yeah,
what are we dealing with here? But and in
yeah.
fact, since I'm talking about movies, do you have any movie news? I kind of can't believe that none of your stories have been made into a movie yet.
We're still working on it. The House Up on a Rain is still out there, being read by people. I don't know how that part works. The Devil Takes You Home was with Sony for a while. They didn't make it. It came back to us. There was a very interested party, and they acquired it. I don't think I'm at a. I can't say anything yet. It's those weird. You have to hold it until we make this announcement. I can say that it's been acquired by someone else, but I've also learned. Um, I've been doing this long enough not to have a movie, but to almost have had movies. So the way that I understand the whole process is, someone approaches you, they give you a little bit of money for the option, and then nothing else happens. So I'm like now very curious about. So we've had this part happen a bunch of times and nothing happens. Can we get to the next stage when something actually happens? So just whenever someone asks, I try to remind myself I don't think about this because my job is to just write the books, and if I try to understand how Hollywood works, then I get frustrated because books are really hard, but they're cheaper to make than movies. So you can just sit at home and write your book longhand or on your laptop or whatever you want. You can't, do that with a movie. You have to attach a lot of people, and then all those people want a lot of money. So yeah, I don't know. Knock on wood. Hopefully, we'll have news about the Devil Takes You Home before the end of the year. And then yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I've got to that stage in the film adaptation process too. I'm obviously eager
Yeah,
to get beyond that. I also got to the stage where it's like there's a writer's strike. Now we're going to put everything on hold. Oh, okay,
yes,
we're going to pay writers more. Okay, that's good. But wait for it, we're going to commission far less and cancel
yeah,
90% of projects. So I know the corporations always win, even when it looks like you've won as the writer. Surprise, the big industry actually won.
yeah. They do.
But I mean, I wonder the connection between the murdered Maria and Hurricane Maria. Was that just a moment of serendipity, or was that something that was planned?
So the woman's name was really Maria, and the hurricane in the book, I didn't know what name it was going to have. because I didn't want to make it that obvious that I was writing about Hurricane Maria. But then I realized it would fit the story perfectly, and for the amount of time that they were without power, electricity, or cops on the streets, it worked really well. So I let it roll. I thought from time to time, writers are experts at negative thoughts. I always thought, not always, but from time to time, that it was a bit over the top, that it was a bit too much. Uh, but then every single time I would tell myself Maria's name was Maria and the hurricane name was Maria. So that's not, my sister's name is Maria. I have an aunt named Maria. It's not that rare for this part of the world to have all of those Marias around. So I let it roll, and no one ever suggested a change, which I think is good. I never know if it's because they didn't read that carefully, because I don't trust people. But hopefully everyone read it carefully during the editing process and it didn't bother anyone. So I roll with it.
All right. Well, we've got a question from Traci Kenworth via Patreon, and we may have covered this to some point, but she wants to know what advice you might have in terms of building your brand or building your author identity.
There's a lot of things that you like that might not have a lot to do with each other. Don't hide those things because you feel like they're not related to your writing. I am constantly talking about music. It's not about books. It doesn't help me sell books. I talk about every movie that I watch. I don't watch that many because I'm busy reading, but I'm gonna let people know my thoughts. Is like I slept on Conclave, brilliant movie, go watch it. It's, I don't care if the stuff that I'm watching lands with every single one of my readers, because it comes and goes. For a week I might be into learning the names and the stories of every dead hiker on Everest, and the week after that I'm into Japanese tattooing and the history of it. So I'm going to talk about it because I'm a person. And then I feel like a lot of folks are like, I'm a romance author. I'm a sci-fi author. No, you're an individual who happens to do that for a living, or as a hobby or whatever it is. So be a full person online. Like, you shouldn't be talking about politics. Screw that. You should be talking about anything that you want to talk about. If you are very politically inclined, talk about politics. If you like to do crochet, if you do little movies with your kids, if you rescue kittens, whatever it is that you do in life, make it part of your social media, because it just lets people know that you're human and that you have other interests, and you make a lot of significant connections that are more important than making, a readers list, or having people sign up to my newsletter. You make connections, and that's a good thing, and from time to time those connections mean that when you have a new book out, there's not 100 people that are going to read it. Now you have 300 friends that might, check out your book or tell their friends about your book. So just be yourself as much as possible, and try to stay sane. Just try to stay sane.
So, on that note, what is perhaps a new obsession or recent discovery for you?
Obsession. Not the novel that I'm struggling to finish, but the next one has a little bit to do with aliens. So, as a fan of Tubi, I've been watching all of those alien abduction documentaries. Some are standard, just what you expected, and some of those, the cheaper they are, the the wilder they get. So that's like a new thing. it felt more not like getting a new thing to think about, a new hyperfixation. It felt like it revived an old hyperfixation, because I remember being like 8 years old and finding out about cattle mutilation, and that was like, wait, what? They're taking the eyeballs, and so it was like, oh, now I'm a writer. I have an excuse to professionally waste my time reading about cattle mutilation, because it counts as research. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's a fascination for a lot of people. I remember growing up and seeing Close Encounters, and you have this concept of what an alien abduction is going to be. Then you read Communion by Whitley Strieber, and you have this
Yes.
idea of it kind of, well, they can actually come to you, and then you see Fire in the Sky, and you're just like, oh my fucking god, what the fuck, and then so and some of those documentaries can get downright fucking creepy. I mean, like you're like looking at the windows, fucking what the fuck was that noise?
Yeah.
you know? Uh and then the fourth kind and owls, I'm just, that'll fuck you up too. So you just,
Yeah.
man, I think I just creeped myself out. Fuck.
Yeah, it's a Communion is a hell of a creepy book. Some of those parts where he's remembering, you feel that anxiety, that thing creeping down the hallway, and the way that it's written. It's not fiction, but you feel that. You feel like, oh shit, there's a thing coming up the stairs or coming down the hallway. Um, so yeah, I think I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
capture a little bit of that. Like I'm sure that if I turn around, there's gonna be this long-headed thing with a big head right behind me. I just know it. And it's fun. It's fun, especially like at 3 in the morning when you forgot your glasses, you're on your way to get a glass of water, and then you hear that little sound, or maybe the fridge does that little clicking. And my fridge does this little click thing that sounds just like the Predator. So yeah, it's super fun at 3 in the morning. That's what I'm going for.
Yeah. That's like, have you seen No One Will Save You? Have you seen that
Yes,
film yet?
yes,
Yeah, I don't know if Michael's seen it or not. You haven't.
I
So,
haven't, no.
yeah, well, it's on Hulu. I don't know where it would be in Japan, but it's it's really good, and there's no dialogue. So, yeah,
no,
it's it's really, for a movie. It's like when put it like this: the main character, she plays Abby in season 2 of The Last of Us from the game, and when they cast her, I was like, perfect, because I've seen what she does without uttering a word. I can only imagine what she can do, you know, when she has dialogue. And so, yeah, you should check it out. No One Will Save You is great.
Yeah, yeah, I will do. Well, to kind of round out, what is the best writing advice that you've ever been given?
the best writing advice I've ever been given. Um, wow. Single piece of advice. I don't know. I'll go with this. Um, I was the University of Texas at Austin. I met a man named Bill Minutaglio. I was getting a PhD in journalism at the time. We became friends. I never took a class with Bill. Bill is a fantastic nonfiction writer, hell of a journalist, award winner. Has a amazing book called "In Search of the Blues," where he tracks down old blues artists all across Texas and Louisiana and has conversations with them. Long story short, we were talking one day, and he looked at me and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to write." And he said, "Go the fuck home and write." And it was the first time that someone had pushed me away from, no, academia is the surefire way to upward social mobility, and you have to have a degree and all this stuff. It was like, no, no, no. What do you want to do? And don't talk about it. Be about it. So stop telling everyone that you want to be a writer. Go write. And that was the best single piece of advice. Go write. Nothing else matters. Go write.
Yeah, that is absolutely perfect. And seemingly, people, at the start of their careers, they're inadvertently self sabotaging or they're having excuses as to why they shouldn't write. But for
Yeah,
anyone listening who's on the edge, there's your permission
you're right.
from Gabino Iglesias. Just write.
Just
Turn off
write.
the podcast. It's nearly ended now, anyway. So
Yeah.
go and
Go,
write.
go.
Well, for those who have not gone to write, where can they connect with you?
Oh, it's a hellscape out there. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm still on Instagram, only sharing photos there. I'm still on X because I don't want to leave because I feel like if I leave, I'm just letting the fascists keep all the good things. So I'm staying there. I'm on Facebook. Whenever I remember, I'm on TikTok talking about diversity in publishing and trying to be funny to sell a book or two. Um, that covers it. That's a lot. That covers it. Yeah.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners and viewers?
No, keep supporting your favorite authors. Keep supporting your favorite podcasts, and please keep supporting your local libraries and your local indie bookstores.
All right. Thank you again for joining us. Let us not leave it so long until the next one.
It won't be 6 years, man. This is too much fun.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.